I made a super frustrating rage game in only 3 hours. After watching Gambit's video on making a rage game in just 48 hours, I thought I would try and make it in only 3. So here's how I did it. The thing about rage games is that they all have a very unique form of movement that's easy to learn but hard to master. Getting Over It has a guy swinging around a hammer. Recently, I saw a video about Pogo Stuck, which is a game where you're a guy taking your time bouncing off a pogo stick to move. After watching that video, I got super inspired by it, and I knew I wanted to do a twist on the pogo stick. So I opened up Unity and I started by creating this circle with a stick coming out of it for your pogo stick. I started experimenting with it and I set up the pogo stick so it's always looking towards your mouse, and then I set up the forces so whenever it hits the ground you bounce off of it, and I knew this was the movement I wanted in my game. Then I set up some more walls and I discovered you could bounce between them, and I realized this would be a really satisfying mechanic later on. Next up, I wanted to change these boring shapes into a character, and I got the idea of making a bunny bouncing on a pogo stick, and I thought it would be perfect with Easter coming up. So it took me about 30 minutes to get the movement how I liked it, and now I wanted to try and cheat a little bit on the art, so I got the idea of asking ChatGPT to make the art. Now, I don't know if I'm just bad at asking for what I wanted, but I went back and forth with the AI for about 15 minutes trying to make a bunny, and I ended up just drawing it on my own. I started by drawing its head in the nice cartoon style, then I drew the pogo stick for the body. Now when I went to put these into Unity, I'll be able to combine them and make it easy to animate. Then, when I actually got it into Unity, I realized that the head wouldn't move unless it ran into something, and it created this super cursed spinning bunny. Anyways, that got me thinking, and I realized I wanted the head to have some sort of animation instead of just sitting still. I played around with some of the different things that Unity has for a dynamic rotation, and then I ended up creating something even more cursed. Eventually, I coded in a mechanic that looks at the angle of the pogo stick and rotates the head to match. I know this looks a little janky right now, especially when the head needs to rotate all the way around, but I think it looks good enough. Then, after doing all this, we've taken about half the time and we're down to an hour and a half left, so I needed to lock in to get this done. So next up, I wanted to start working on the map. The first thing I wanted to do was change this boring white walls to have some sort of texture. So I opened up Krita again and I drew up this plain dirt block and then one with grass on top. Then I watched a quick tutorial to set up a tile set for Unity and I started working on the map. First, I just scattered some more of these blocks around to get a feel for how the movement's going to go, and I realized that we need the camera to follow the player. So I set up some code that makes it slowly move to where the player is. That works really well actually and helps finding the angle of the pogo stick because the player is always in the center of the screen. Now, that only took about 15 minutes, so we still have plenty of time. Now I needed to start actually working on the map. So I didn't really have a plan for how I wanted the map to go, I just knew I wanted it to be vertical and to punish the player if they fell. So I just started sketching out how I wanted it to look, and I tried to incorporate some of the different mechanics I discovered while I was testing. Then, after about 5 minutes, here was the result I came up with. It's nothing special, but it has all the good parts of a rage map. Next, I decided to go and add a little more variety in the background, so I found this cloud spray I used in my other projects and I scattered it around the background. Now it's finally time to test it, and this was the hard part. I wanted the game to not be too easy but not too hard to beat. After going back and forth a few times, I finally got it the way I liked it, and now there are only about 30 minutes left on my timer. With the last 30 minutes, I realized I wanted there to be something satisfying at the end of the game, so I created this carrot spray and I made it so when you run into it, it'll explode and that'll mark the end of the game. Then I still had some extra time, so I created this stopwatch timer that'll show up in the top corner of the screen and add a little bit more of a challenge if you want to see how fast you can go. Finally, I created this game over screen that pops up when you get the carrot and lets you restart and go for a faster time. Then, after all that, my 3 hours were up. I'm extremely happy with how this game turned out, and a huge thanks for Gambit for the inspiration. If you want to go try and see how fast you can beat the game, the link is in the description. My best time is around 80 seconds, so go try and beat that. Thank you so much for watching this video, please subscribe and go check out another video.